My name is Andreea Ghervan and I am the project officer of the Costume Archive Poshak Puralekh project at the Centre for Indian Classical Dance here in Leicester. Today is Sunday 19th of January and the time is 3:45 and I'm with Meera Patel, one of the CICD students and a brilliant Kathak dancer, and we will talk about our costumes. Hi Meera.
Hello.
Tell me something about yourself and how did you get to know Nilima Devi and the Centre for Indian Classical Dance?
So I am born in Leicester. I am now London-based, but born in Leicester. And when I was younger, actually from the age of 5, I was doing Bollywood dancing and things. And I actually danced with Naina Ben in Neighbourhood Centre before I'd even met Didi. And some of my cousins who I danced with, they had been coming to Kathak classes with Nilima Ji on Saturdays at Knighton Fields. So I think my mum took me along, and I was very small. I've always been quite small, and she goes, "Please, can my daughter join your class?" And Nilima Ji was like, "Are you sure she's not too young?" And I think my mum just pushed, and I think that was it. Yeah. So then I just did the Saturday classes, which was a group class, and we did grades then. And then I think after a year or two, Nilima Ji said it would be a good idea for me to do one-to-one classes. So then I was doing those on Wednesdays and then the group class. And I did that from the age of 7 up until I went to university at 18, which I left was because I left Leicester to go to university. In that time, I did my grades with Didi and did performances and whatever else she had to offer me.
Brilliant. So you started at the age of 6?
6, 7, I think it was. Yeah, with Nilima Ji, yeah.
Lovely. And then you pursued the studies up till grade 6?
Grade 6, yeah. So I think actually it was that I would have been doing a grade a year. So I think I got to grade 6 around the age of 13, 14. And then after then, Didi asked if I wanted to do the vocational grades that come after that. But I think I was just so tired of doing exams that I just wanted to carry on dancing and not doing the exams, which I sometimes regret now, but it is what it is. So I just carried on my Wednesday and Saturday classes and enjoying just learning more and performing and maybe like refining what I already knew. And at the time, I don't know, 15-year-old me talking about refining, I don't know, but I think that is what it did to me if I wasn't focusing on the exams up until 18, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And what is your background? I mean, I know you're from India, but do you know more about, and you were born in Leicester, but do you know more about the background where you're coming from, the specific maybe region that you're coming from, India, and, you know, any other
movement? Yeah, so my grandparents are Gujarati. They were born in Gujarat. And it's actually interesting you asked me this because I was speaking with my grandma quite a bit over the Christmas break about our background. We had a family friend who passed away, who he was in his 90s. He lived an amazing life. So it just means it's that time of talking a lot about where you've come from. So what happened was that my granddad, he went across to, this is my dad's side, and I think it was similar on my mum's side. Both granddads went across to East Africa for work, which is like a lot of the Gujarati community, a lot of Indian community. And so that was my one side in Uganda and the other in Malawi. And that's where my parents were born. And they lived there, my dad, until I think he was about 16, and my mum around a similar age. And then Idi Amin, etc., etc. A few years later, we're in England. And actually, Leicester didn't happen that early, actually. I think my mum's side were up north in Bradford, dad's side in London, and then only when my parents got married through an arranged marriage did they then come to Leicester because of my dad's work. So we don't have any family in Leicester or immediate family. We kind of set base in Leicester, and we were in between, geographically in between our families who are south in London and north in Bradford and Leeds, which is quite nice. So we're like 2 hours from each. So growing up, I was close enough, 2 hours, seeing all of that family. But
more travelling for you.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That's good. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty much the movement of my family. And I don't know many of my family back in Gujarat. I think there's like my grandparents, brothers and sisters who may still be there, but I personally, I haven't been many times to visit them. My grandma keeps in touch, but yeah, like cousins wise and second cousins wise, we stay in contact, which is nice. Because we're all in the UK, I guess, and some spread out, some in the US and some, yeah.
That's really nice. Can you tell me about something about the first production or the first costume you got to wear within CICD, and how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it would have been, it was so long ago, but I think it would have been either one of the grade pieces we were presenting at the showcase, the annual showcase that they used to do at CICD, or the Tarana piece, which we might have learnt in like grade 3 or something. And it was the what are checkered from up close, but I think from far they don't look checkered. And they come in quite a lot of pastel-y colours with the band coming across it, that one there. And I remember because what's great about these costumes, and a lot of the costumes, is that they've kind of gone through a history even before I got to them. So I've seen videos of ladies who are senior to me wearing these same costumes, which is amazing. Like, and they're kind of timeless in a way. So then when we got to them, I just needed to find a size that fit me. This is my experience of it, that because I was small, and actually in the class, my cousins who I was talking about why I got into the Kathak, they were older than me, 4 years older, and I had a friend who was there and she was much taller than me, and then there was little me trying to find the perfect costume for me. And I do actually think the first time I ever wore one, it didn't fit me very well. It kind of like drowned me a little bit, and I was like, but it's okay because I'm really enjoying dancing on stage, and it's okay because we all look the same, as in we all were wearing these really nice pastel colours, and like we'd rehearsed really hard, and it was just exciting performing with an official Kathak costume. I think like other performances maybe I would have done before that would have been very small scale, maybe not even on a stage. So to perform on stage wearing a costume, wearing your bells, having done the makeup that's to be done, and Didi helping us backstage, all of us first time doing these things, was such an exciting experience. And yeah,
did you have any favourite one?
Costume?
Yeah.
So I think maybe one of my favourite ones would have been the one that fit me the best.
Of course.
But I think it was when I got a bit older, and it's this one that I described. And it was an anarkali, which was green, like a kind of deeper green, like a forest green, and the waistcoat, the kurti on top, was a navy blue. And I think generally I like anarkalis anyway, but this one, the cut felt really nice because it went in after the bust, even for tiny me with, I don't know, and went out at the waist, and then the kurti just kind of accentuated that cut on any dancer actually, and it became my favourite costume to wear. So I remember when Didi maybe found some opportunities for me to perform solo in places. I did something at the Jane Centre and Neighbourhood Centre and a few other opportunities. That would be the costume I chose to wear because I just thought, and it made me feel, and I think that's it. A good costume makes you feel good, and that was one that I definitely felt good in. There was other ones as well, like the rainbow costume, which is a total different style, and I think that's why it made me feel I was excited to be wearing this different style costume. But
do you think the costume has a direct impact on your performance?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think as a performer, wearing a costume that makes you feel more confident brings out confidence in your performance. It's that idea of being comfortable in your skin, I guess. And as a performer, I feel like your skin is your costume, because that is the kind of person you're being a performer, so that is the skin that you're wearing, and to feel comfortable in that, I think, is really important. That's why I definitely remember this green with the blue navy kurti costume.
Did you have any input in the designing of the costume, or it was there and you just...
I don't think we did so much have, as I was saying, that these costumes have been passed down quite a bit. If anything, I think input might have been in choosing the colours that we might be wearing, because some of them have like a range of colours, and if we're wearing it as a group, we'd be deciding as a group how would we want to choose the colours. I think that would have been a discussion that we had between all of us and Didi, in the sense of like what kind of feeling do we want from the piece, for example. So like, I know checkered costumes I was talking about, if it was a tarana it would have a certain feel, if it was a grade piece we might want a different feel. So like where in the palette do we choose the colours from, I think was quite important. But Didi obviously helped in a lot of these decisions, seeing as she choreographed the pieces and she might have had something in mind already.
That's interesting to know that you decide the costumes and the colours
yeah.
with the piece and with the feeling that you want to.
Yeah. And actually there's I don't fully remember this costume very well, but there's a set of costumes and there's deep purples and there's blues as well, and it's another like a kind of anarchy one, and the top is like paisley. I don't know if they've been seen anywhere, and I recently saw a picture of Janni Premji wearing it. Anyway, these are other costumes, but I think a lot of the times we choose between wearing like the blues and greens or wearing like the purples or something, because the purples were really deep and they gave this kind of like wholesome kind of royal feeling to something, whereas like the blues were a lot airier and lighter, or even though the materials were the same, it's the colour gave a completely different feeling.
It's really
I think so anyway, yeah.
It's really interesting. And what about you as a dancer now, as a dancer or even a contemporary dancer? How do you pick your costumes? Any particular attention to the materials? I know that you have a particular attention to the colours, as you said, I believe. Materials or the type of styling, designing, in terms of...
Yeah, I think it's a similar thing as to what kind of performance you're doing. So I know with the way I think about it is with a lot of the technical performances where we are doing lots of chukkers and there's a lot of movement around the space and swift movement around the space. You want something that flows quite well in the space, so the material would be a bit lighter. And some of the recent costumes that I see people performing in that work really well are kind of like double layers, where you can kind of really see the motion of the chukkers and the motion of the movement as they're moving around the space. So that's one thing that I think a lot of people think about. I definitely think about. And even if there's any sort of kind of narrative to the piece that you're performing, so I know, especially in classical forms, lengas are worn quite a lot in abhinaya pieces, because if you're showing a naika in a certain way, there's a certain feeling, there's a certain kind of impression that a lenga gives off, where it is quite kind of feminine. It's very informal in a way, whereas anarchy is like kind of like a formal Kathak performance, whereas I think the lenga brings about a informality, which is nice.
And maybe a folk kind of...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think
it?
that's what comes into it. And I guess all of these forms come from somewhere that would have been influenced by folk and stuff anyway. So, and actually these, I know I'm saying these specific to like abhinaya and Kathak and classical pieces, but I think even in contemporary dance, like I did a performance just 2 weeks ago, and it was classical at the core, but the conceptualization of it was very contemporary. So the way that we were thinking about costumes was also had a contemporary kind of direction to it. And for that, it was actually, we were thinking a lot about what the textures are coming across on the piece, because actually we'd performed it before and worn these suede tops. It was like these long black suede tops, and they did give this nice kind of matteness on the stage. But actually when we watched the videos back, we thought it would work quite well, because it's the kind of motion of the body that we wanted to see, and like if the matteness was giving this kind of the lines of the body, that would work well. But it was a bit lost on stage, because it was quite so kind of blunt on the edges that it also depends on the stages, but a lot of the stages that we perform on are black box stages. So if you're performing in a black kind of blunt top, then you have to think about that. So in the end, we changed the tops to a black as well, because we wanted to stick with that. But most of us were wearing kind of mesh, so you could see our skin underneath. And that kind of gave more layering to what we were doing, and actually the motion of it, and not getting lost in the kind of black box environment of the stage as well. So things like that, like the kind of practicality aspects of it, is quite important as well.
Yes, it's really interesting to see there is a deep thought before choosing a specific costume for a specific performance.
I think so.
I'm sure this is what happened with and every one of the Centre for Indian Classical Dance. What do you feel there's significance for the Leicester community and the South Asian Leicester community is in Leicester of these costumes?
I think there's especially with the folk costumes, there's the obvious kind of significance of the culture that they're used to, and the kind of celebration around folk dances are a lot of the time around celebration, and when they're presented in that way, people feel warm to them, I guess, and it accentuates, as in not accentuates, it brings about the culture even more. So I guess it's a sense of like home for people, and Indian community in Leicester, that it is home. Yeah, it's what they like seeing, it's what they're used to seeing, it's what they see in the movies, it's what they see in, I don't know, when they go home, like if they have family back in India, or if they ever visit back. So I think that's a nice thing for the Indian community. And even the more classical costumes, I guess a lot of the costumes are, the colours are very bright, and I think in a lot of celebration and in a lot of the traditions and culture of Indian culture, it is about colour. Colour is very important in spirituality, it's very important in music, if you think about ragas and stuff like that. So I think there might even be like an underlying thing that people don't realise why they're enjoying it. It's so embedded in how we think and how we are as humans, especially as in the Indian community, I think.
That's interesting. Interesting. And what do you think should happen to these costumes? Because they are here, some of them, for the past 40 years. Some of them, maybe they're not in the same condition they were before, but some we can see that they're in perfect, good condition, and some dancers are still hiring these costumes and all. But we are also planning with this project to donate to the museums around UK. So what do you think the best thing should happen to these costumes, and how they can be celebrated more, or they can be, used more?
I think the plans for it sound pretty perfect, in the sense that I think there are costumes that still can be used, and I think the idea of something being quite timeless, like the fact that they have been here for 40 years and there's still people wanting to use them, is amazing. Like, I think that should be carried on, because they've got history in them, in the sense of like obviously the age of them, but who's worn them as well, like the different walks, people in different walks of life, and that's exciting in itself. And then the whole other side of like preserving them and not even preserving them, other people seeing them, putting them on display for other people to see, rather than them being up in the 51 Churchill Street loft, or and for people to actually see and enjoy culture in a way. It's just another way of it's an art in itself. Costume making is an art in itself, so it's displaying art for people to see, and historical art and art through the ages in costume form.
Brilliant. I know that you will perform for one of the events of the project, so I'm sure that you're quite excited as well. That will be actually our last event of this project. Thank you so much for coming today, because you're living in London, so it's not easy, but thank you so much for your time, and for all these nice thoughts that you're sharing with us. That would be all for today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.